All right, we are going to be focusing on plants and animal life cycles and parts of plants today. So we are going to go down to here where it says plants, which will actually be on page 25. I have numbered them, starting with this as number 1, and I've numbered them. So this will be 25. It looks like this. So I'm going to go through and highlight all of the words that we are going to be filling in, and then filling it in as we go over them. Okay, so this is going to help you in reviewing for the FSA when we're talking about plants and animals. Now, in order to survive, plants need sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water. They change this into oxygen and sugar. This is called the process of photosynthesis, the process of plants creating their own food. Roots grow in soil and pull water and nutrients to the plant and anchor the plant into the ground for stability to grow downward and they grow downward due to gravity. So these are our roots, will be down below. The stem transports water through the plant up to the leaves, and they grow towards the sunlight. They grow upwards, the stem, which is connected right here. The leaves catch the sunlight and allow air and water to enter the plant. And that's where photosynthesis happens in the leaves. The flowers, the petals attract insects to pollinate the plant. Female part, the pistil, and the male part, the stamen, they work together to reproduce the plant and produce seeds. So bees go on one plant, they get on the pollen, they bring the stuff from one flower to another, and it pollinates it, and it's able to create seeds, which in turn create new plants. So that is our review for plants. Now the next one is going to be life cycles, which will be not the next page, but the page after. When we talk about life cycles, we talk about metamorphosis. Metamorphosis meaning something changing. So I'm going to go through here and highlight. This is page 27. I'm going to list the different stages here. Okay. There we go. All right, let's talk about metamorphosis. The first one is complete metamorphosis, and that is phosis. This is page 27. That is a type of life cycle characterized by the presence of a larval stage, which means it has 4 different stages. The first stage is the egg. The next stage is the pupa. And then the next stage is the larva, which is the chrysalis. So complete metamorphosis has the chrysalis, and then the animal comes out a different animal. An incomplete does not have a chrysalis, and it stays very similar to the animal that it was born. It's just an adult version. So that is the difference. So incomplete we have the egg, we have the nymph, and then we have the adult. So if you can see, the adult and the younger version, the nymph, are very similar. They do not change completely like you do in complete metamorphosis. Now let's talk about the life cycle of plants. A flowering plant is a plant that needs pollination. I mentioned it on the page before, but this is how it works. Pollination is what happens when pollen is transferred from stamen to the pistil by animals, wind, or people. Fertilization happens when the male pollen and the female ovule come together. So a bee or wind or people move the pollen from one plant to the other, and then they connect. The male pollen gets to the female part of the flower, and then they're able to create seeds. Seeds are dispersed, and then that is how the plants are able to start germinating. Germination means to grow. Now, non-flowering plants do not have flowers to create their seeds, so they have different things in order to reproduce. We have conifers, which have seeds in cones, like pine trees, cypresses, okay? Or we have sporing trees, which they grow on the underside of the leaves, like mosses and ferns. So that is our life cycle. Now the next one we're going to go to is classifying animals, which will be page 28. And we're going to talk about the different kinds of animals. And what constitutes or requirements each animal has in order to be called that animal. All right, amphibians. Amphibians are cold-blooded, meaning that they cannot regulate their own temperature. They have to rely on either heat sources or ways to cool off in order to regulate their temperature. They have waterproof skin. Most young ones have gills. Most adult ones have lungs. They go through a metamorphosis. They lay eggs in water or moist areas, and they are vertebrates. So like frogs, they lay their eggs in the water. They become tadpoles with gills and little tails so they can swim. And then they grow up to be frogs with lungs, no tail, 4 legs. And that is an amphibian. A reptile, they lay eggs. They are also cold-blooded, meaning they cannot regulate their own temperature. They have scales. They have lungs, and they are vertebrates, which means they have a backbone. Now, snakes can move very easily, very quickly, and it looks like they don't have bones, but they just have a lot of vertebrae that helps them move and the way that they do move. The next one is birds. Birds have beaks. They lay eggs. They are warm-blooded, meaning their body regulates its own temperature. They are vertebrates, and they have feathers and wings. Notice it does not say that they all fly, because not every bird flies, but they do have feathers and they do have wings. All mammals have hair or fur. They have live birth, so they do not have eggs. They feed milk to their young. They are warm-blooded. They regulate their own temperature. They live on land and they can live in water, and they have backbones. Humans are considered mammals because we have all these characteristics. Fish have gills to breathe instead of lungs. They have scales. They have live birth. Some do have eggs, yes. Cold-blooded, vertebrae. And they can live in freshwater or saltwater. And the last one is arthropods. Arthropods' bodies are divided in sections. They are an invertebrate, meaning they do not have a backbone because they have an exoskeleton. An exoskeleton, if we remember from when we did our human body, is a skeleton on the outside, like a harder shell. They have jointed legs, the exoskeleton. They live on water or land. They mostly lay eggs. Some give live birth. So that is a classification of our animals.